September 26th, 2024. The Minnesota Twins, who are fighting for their season, are at deep waters, with a team whose season has seemingly been over for months in the Miami Marlins. And with Minnesota squandering a chance to walk it off in the 12th when veteran Carlos Santana inexplicably got doubled up on a popped-up bunt, things are getting even dimmer. The Marlins added 3 in the top of the 13th to put the Twins on the ropes, and although they rallied back with one of their own, down to their final out, star Carlos Correa chopped one back to the pitcher, and the shortstop proceeded to lightly jog to first, resulting in a game-ending out even after a wild throw nearly sailed down the right field line. While the Twins' postseason hopes officially finalized the following day versus the Orioles, this loss to the Marlins perhaps helps explain the disastrous end of the Twins' season better than any. This was indicative of a team that had an over 90% chance at making the postseason at several times throughout August and September, only to fail so spectacularly when it mattered most, and they did so with the truly momentous thud, finishing the season with just 12 wins in their final 39 games, after being the best team in baseball over the previous 100. They went from the second best starting pitching staff by ERA in 2023 all the way down to 22nd in 2024. Their offense went from the third most home runs at a mark of 233 that would have had them ranked first in 2024 with a top 10 OPS to being outside the top 10 in both this year with the ridiculous 50 less home runs. But it shouldn't have been like this. In fact, 2023 seemed like the birth of a new era of dominance for Twins baseball. So, what changed? In order to examine that, we first need to start with the conclusion of their most recent postseason run. They had followed ending their historically bad 18-game playoff losing streak versus the Blue Jays in the wildcard round with a hard-fought, ultimately unsuccessful ALDS versus the mighty Astros. They pulled off this feat with excellent performances from Pablo Lopez, Carlos Correa, Jhoan Duran, and the breakout of former first overall pick, Royce Lewis. But despite having their first notable postseason success in 2 decades, and their fan base more excited than ever for Twins baseball, ownership, who are having regional sports network issues, cut over $30 million in payroll between 2023 and 2024. Gone were veterans Sonny Gray, Kenta Maeda, and Jorge Polanco. But even this wasn't the end of the world. After all, their core nucleus had stayed intact. The problem really lied in what they decided to do in reinforcements. While Carlos Santana was actually a very solid pickup, swinging a trade for Manuel Margot simply didn't work, with the same being true of Stephen Okert from Miami, who posted an ERA of over 5 in just 35 innings. Budget relief option Josh Staumont missed time and would ultimately be released. The same was true of Jay Jackson, who at the time of his DFA was rocking an ERA over 7. For a rotation that was a clear spot they needed to address, they opted to go internally with the constantly banged up Chris Paddock, who only ended up lasting a mediocre 88 innings, and externally by acquiring Anthony DeSclafani in the Jorge Polanco trade, who never even took the mound once for Minnesota. On a similar note, Justin Topa, who they also acquired in the Jorge Polanco trade, made his first appearance of the season on September 25th. So yeah, the pieces that they added didn't end up being very good, but as we'd alluded to with both DeSclafani and Topa, this wasn't the only issue for the Twins. Which brings us to our second major one, being the fact that as the team whose 3 best players are now famously injury prone, they unsurprisingly dealt with a litany of injuries, which started literally from the get-go, as on opening day, Royce Lewis went 2 for 2 with the homer before exiting the game with a quad injury he suffered running the bases, which ended up keeping him out until June, before a string of further ailments ended up limiting him to only 82 total games. That was the same exact total that leader Carlos Correa took part in as well, as he missed almost 3 months due to various impediments, the most serious being plantar fasciitis. And while Byron Buxton actually played more games in 2024 than he had since 2017, he still missed over 50 contests himself, being out for a full month at around the same time as Correa's extended absence, which ended up coinciding with the beginning of the team's collapse in August. Even their bullpen ace, Jhoan Duran, missed nearly all of April with an oblique injury, and clearly wasn't 100% all season, only averaging 100.5 miles per hour in his fastball, which was actually down 1.3 miles per hour from 2023, touching as a high 103.4 miles per hour in velocity this campaign versus 105.6 the previous season. The numbers overall weren't anywhere near his established levels, as his ERA plus dropped from at or around 200 in back-to-back years to just over 110. But keep in mind, those were just the notable names. Breakout slugger Matt Wallner missed 2 months. Outfield rock Max Kepler lost 50 games. Underrated reliever Brock Stewart, who had allowed just 2 runs in limited action in 2023, had season-ending shoulder surgery after just 15 games. Even their most consistent starter, Joe Ryan, went down with a campaign-ending shoulder injury as well in that fateful month of August. But here's the thing, every team deals with injuries, and the Twins themselves had dealt with a ton of them in 2023 and still found their way into October. And like I mentioned in the beginning, the Twins had overcome a ton of this adversity already. en route to having a 95% postseason probability as late as September 5th, when they were 5.5 games up in the wildcard race. So, besides having more than a few notable players out, what the hell happened from here? There seems to be, in my estimation, two principal reasons the Twins couldn't hang on. One, the Detroit Tigers getting ridiculously hot, using a self-described bullpen chaos approach to whittle down that somewhat safe lead day by day, seeing their own microscopic 0.5% postseason chance rise all the way to over 35% by mid-September, before eventually clinching a spot as Minnesota continued to flounder. It's that floundering that brings us to our second principal reason. The Twins just weren't clutch, losing 17 games by 3 runs or fewer in the last 2 months of the season. Undoubtedly their most heartbreaking series of the year was versus the division rival Guardians in a 4-game set starting on September 16th, where, despite having the lead in the 6th inning or later in every single contest, the Twins dropped 3 of 4 games, losing Game 1 on a go-ahead 2-run blast in the 8th inning, dropping Game 3 by blowing a 2-run 10th inning lead, then officially losing the series when they couldn't score with the bases loaded in extras, allowing Andres Gimenez to walk them off for the second straight night. In fact, that final contest officially tied the Gritty Tigs with the Twins in the record department. Don't get me wrong, getting blown out in a doubleheader versus Boston a few days later, then the Marlins series, and just the final month and a half stretch were in general a disaster. But the fact a Twins team almost got swept in a 4-game series where they had the lead every single night just showed that this Twins team did not have the finishing power of a postseason contender. And that's how the Minnesota Twins collapsed in one of the most epic ways we've seen in recent baseball history. However, if you're a Twins fan, there does seem to be at least a little light at the end of the tunnel. Carlos Correa, Royce Lewis, and Byron Buxton will still be on the team next year, and while you can probably pencil them in for at least a few missed games, they have undeniably been productive when they have appeared. And who knows, what if all 3 can manage around 450 at-bats next year? That could remake the entire offensive narrative of the coming season. What's more, Matt Wallner, Ryan Jeffers, Trevor Larnach, and Jose Miranda have all shown the ability to be good big league hitters over a sizable sample at this point. And the rotation is Pablo Lopez, who after a rough first half looked like the Pablo of old down the stretch. Joe Ryan, who should be good to go following his own injury, and breakout 6'8" performer Bailey Ober, who had one of the more underrated seasons in baseball in 2024. That unit truly could be great, especially with a complimentary offseason move if ownership decides to do so, or if a young pitcher like Simeon Woods Richardson makes a leap. The bullpen as well will have a fully recovered Joan Duran and Brock Stewart, along with Griffin Jacks, Cole Sands, and Jorge Alcala. Their farm system's in great shape as well, with MLB's number 2 overall prospect according to Pipeline in Walter Jenkins, a legit 5-tool threat, and the 29th overall as well in Emmanuel Rodriguez, who has a career OPS in the minors of .932 and is ranked in the top 10 in other publications. But perhaps the most promising thing going forward is that the Polid family, who have owned the team since the 1980s, have announced that they're exploring a sale of the franchise. Perhaps this would be the missing piece needed to finally figure out this puzzle that has remained unsolved since 1991, the last year they won a World Series. So, what do you guys think? Are the Twins going to be good next year, or is it going to be another disappointing season? Make sure to let me know below in the comments. Now, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and consider checking out this playlist for other essay content just like this. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.